In a special one-to-one here on Lembit Öpik Live, we speak with Nick Griffin about something called the American Technate. Is the United States in the grip of madness? Find out here on @Unprecedented TV.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you!
Boring. Boring. Boring.
You got it work. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
Welcome, one and all. Lembit Öpik here on Lembit Öpik Live on @Unprecedented TV. Please do like and subscribe. Regular viewers will know we spent last week in Washington and hopefully had some insights there. We have a man who knows quite a lot about the United States, former leader of the British National Party and political commentator and writer, Nick Griffin. Good to see you, Nick. Thanks for coming here. Nice to see you in person.
Great to be in the studio.
This is a real person. Look,
yeah.
Look, that hurts.
I can move his tie.
Either that or it's absolutely brilliant AI.
I'm not part of a green screen.
So, what are you doing these days? You used to run the British National Party. You used to be quite a controversial character, as I recall.
Yes. I'm in and out of court with the campaign against anti-Semitism, who are using attacks on me, on leftists and on pro-Palestinian Muslims as a way of chilling any criticism of the Israeli genocide. So I'm busy with that. I'm also very busy writing on Substack, which if people are new to it, is a fantastic free journalism platform. I can be found there, Nick Griffin Beyond the Pale.
Well, nothing controversial there then. And you can no doubt follow all of that in the news when it comes up. But we're here not to talk about that. We'll talk about the situation in the United States now. Regular viewers will know I was in Washington last week and trying to find out what was going on in terms of the Iranian conflict and what was going on there. Donald Trump, as you know, he's been pretty busy, up to his neck in it, really. Just the big picture here before we talk about this thing called the Technate. How do you feel Donald Trump himself is feeling now? Is this all he wanted?
It's very difficult to tell, isn't it? I mean, everyone understands that if you get your news from anywhere other than the BBC, everyone understands that to a degree, America and Trump have been bounced into this by Benjamin Netanyahu. So there's the Zionist lobby pushing for America to do the fighting and dying and spending the money for them. I think pretty much everyone gets that. Anyone with any sense also understands that war is big business. As Smedley Butler once said, war is a racket. So you've got the military-industrial complex, of course, pushing for conflict.
Yeah, so it's an interesting thing. You're saying that everybody gets that, but there are people who would just simply take issue. They'd simply say that what you're saying isn't correct.
Yeah, I suppose there are some who would say, oh, you know, Iran, these monsters are about to get the bomb, we had to stop them. Yeah. I guess if you've fallen or continue to fall for the propaganda of the media functionaries or the warmongers. You know, the Iranians were not about to get a weapon of mass destruction. We've heard that, you know, with the Iraq thing. We heard it with Saddam Hussein. It's the usual nonsense. And even if they were, it would put them on exactly the same par as their Israeli neighbors and would actually probably make the Middle East a more peaceful place because of the threat of mutually assured destruction. The Iranians haven't got a nuclear bomb. They've had no desire to have a nuclear bomb. They'd said it's haram. Now, whether the Americans have now actually managed to put Iran in the hands of people who are so angry and worried that they now go and get a nuclear bomb, I'm not sure, but they haven't had one up until now.
Netanyahu would disagree. He'd say that Israel will get annihilated if Iran gets a nuclear weapon.
I'm sure they wouldn't, because if you annihilate your weapon, your enemy who has nuclear weapons, and Israel has at least 200, then you are annihilated yourself. So nobody, the point about nuclear weapons is no one dare to use them.
Yeah. That's the problem. It's a bit like what's called the dreadnoughts in World War I, these huge ships. And in something called the Battle of Jutland, everyone was too scared to use their massive ships. It's like playing chess. I'm quite a good chess player, but let's not go down that path. That sounds terribly. I now sound like Rachel Reeves. Yeah, I won a competition. No, you didn't. This is the actual winner, but we'll not go down that path now.
I'd remind you, it's 1-1, by the way.
Well, let the viewer understand. So Capitol Hill basically has been. When I was up there, it's been quite cautious, quite diplomatic. I don't think Donald Trump's in any danger of being deposed, to be honest with you. In the Republican Party, there was talk about Amendment 25, which is, he's mad and need to get rid of him. But there's not any real appetite for that in the Republicans. And I don't feel that anyone really wants to take on the situation because they have to undo the Iranian, unwind the Iranian problem. And also they have to deal with the midterms. And I don't think many... people want to be president in November.
What's coming, the mother of all financial crises.
Why that?
Because what's being done in the Middle East isn't just some little adventure which you can sort of watch and think is going on over there. It's going to affect all our lives on a massive scale. It's just as people sort of when we first got into the pandemic, people ain't thought this is something that, well, it's just another news story. And it turned out to be something that dominated everybody's lives. That was something that the elite could turn on and they turned off. What's happening now is a crisis which they can turn it on. They cannot turn off the consequences.
Well, yeah, and we've seen quite a lot of damage. In fact, we can see on the screen there one of the aircraft, $750 million worth of smashed up aircraft. Sentry, I think they're called. Technical wizardry, but not looking so hot there. Probably won't be flying again. So we've got quite a lot of damage there. Okay, so the big picture is we've got, however we got there, Trump stuck in this conflict, trying to find peace. Hasn't found a ceasefire yet, but hasn't found peace yet. Because there's so much to talk about, I want to get to the technique thing in a minute, and you can explain what that even means. This live, we're in a ceasefire. How robust is that ceasefire?
Well, you say Trump's seeking peace. I don't think he is, or more to the point, the people really running the show. This is one of those crises that is created artificially. There was no need for this. Just one more thing on Iran, by the way, that people might say, all the terrorism they've been behind. The terrorism that we in the West have suffered is from Al Qaeda and ISIS, who were Sunni extremists, and the Iranians were the ones who helped the Syrian, the old Syrian government, and the Russians fight them to a standstill.
But you're saying that Iran stopped all of that.
Yeah, Iran was one of the key powers that stopped the Sunni Islamist terrorism. Iran offered to join the United States and Britain fighting the Taliban because they're a completely different faction of the Islamic religion, and they've never been a terrorist threat to us. They've been involved in helping Hezbollah in the Middle East, including against American troops. But really, with the greatest respect to Americans, Americans can't complain that their troops are attacked when they're occupying somebody else's country. They attacked British troops when we were occupying their country, and they threw us out, and that's a standard American patriotism thing. But no, Iran was not a terrorist state, no threat to the West.
For many people, you're taking a pro-Iranian position, which you don't see on the mainstream. If you're right, why don't we hear this on the BBC and on Sky and everywhere else?
Because, as you know, the mainstream is dominated by the Zionist lobby, and they want to use America
BBC, isn't it?
And the West. It's not at a low level, but at a high level. At the very least, you have to say it would not cross them.
Well, you're sounding like a conspiracy theorist.
That's because there's people out there
because you are a conspiracy
who
theorist.
Are running open conspiracies to ruin our world. Absolutely so.
Well, you're spreading fear. You're saying Capitol Hill, though. You're saying, okay, well, no. Some would say you're spreading fear. No, I'm allowed to have an opinion here. You'll just have to work out for yourself if you agree with him or others. Capitol Hill, it seemed to me like a fairly mature place where people were willing to talk off the record, quite honestly. And aside from having the feeling that Trump really just isn't in so much danger, I don't think he's in threat at all. There may have been frustration by the power of the Israeli lobby, but they talked about it rationally. Not everybody was saying, oh, yes, we're overrun by Netanyahu's influence. I actually think that they had a perspective about it, and I think they did regard themselves as being bounced into this war.
But it's only part of it. That's the point. And those who are saying it's just the Zionist lobby, just the Israelis, they're missing the point. This is about far more than that. It's also about more than the military-industrial complex. There's some very sinister forces which have helped to create this crisis and now using this crisis to advance their own agenda. Now, one of them, of course, is the World Economic Forum, who I don't think they started this, but the governments like ours, which is basically a puppet of the WEF, they will use this crisis as an excuse basically for this is going to be lockdown too, but it ain't going away, because they can say, sorry, we'd love to stop rationing fuel and so on. We'd love to let you fly
The
again,
lockdown.
but you're not going to, because it's not in our hands. There is not the hydrocarbon capacity in the world for the ordinary peasants to go jetting off on holiday. Sorry, you can't do it anymore. It's not our fault, but this is going to be a permanent lockdown on a huge scale.
You mean like the COVID one?
Like
there we've got the picture.
Exactly like the COVID one, the way in which a falsely produced crisis was then exploited quite ruthlessly in order to impose elite control on the rest of us. And this is going to be the case, because we're not just looking at whether a ceasefire. The ceasefire is not going to last, because it's not intended to last. The intention of this crisis is not just to attack Iran. The intention of this crisis is to demolish the hydrocarbon industry of the whole Middle East in a way which will deny humanity at least 30% of the fuel and the fertilizer on which our civilization is based.
This is a huge claim. You're talking about a world-changing, lockdown-creating system,
exactly,
including the World Economic Forum. We can't go further without mentioning the oddballs, Klaus Schwab and Bud Branda. I think there they are. In fact, both of them have seemed to have been chucked out. Schwab for internal accusations, and Branda just resigned when he was connected to the Epstein files.
Yes. But
be careful what you say now. We can't afford his lawyers, but
the thing is still there. And behind the World Economic Forum, there's the Rockefeller Foundation, which really produced the money and the whole of the man-made climate change hoax in the first place.
I do agree with you on that.
There's enormous power there, and I'm not saying they've created this crisis, but they will exploit this crisis ruthlessly.
Before we talk about this technate thing, how influential? I'm leading the witness here. How influential do you think Keir Starmer is in all of this? Him and his mate Donald Trump. We see them on the screen there.
Starmer is a particularly low-grade puppet, isn't he? I don't think he's not influential in the slightest. He's battered from one side of the room to the other just by events, trying desperately to pretend that he's prime minister material when he patently is not.
He doesn't seem to. Well, he doesn't seem to do anything. I think that's where I put it. He doesn't seem to do anything. And his chancellor, we covered that on another day, missing in action. And what's she doing?
Yes.
She went and said to the people, she went to Washington and said, boy, I'm happy. I can't impersonate. Boy, I'm happy with what you're doing, Trump. But Trump's saying, I'm going to shred the agreement, the agreement there. Trump threatens to shred UK trade deal over Starmer's Iran war opposition. The UK Prime Minister hit back saying he will not yield. I will not yield to the United States President's threats. Who cares?
Well, very unusually, I'm going to sound slightly defensive of Starmer and the Labour government.
What?
Yeah. Because you have to say, well, what on earth could they do?
Yeah.
Because of them, but also because of the Tories before them and then the Labour Party before that, because of how the whole political elite has dealt with Britain over the last 40, 50 years. We are not a great nation which has enormous power to do good or evil in the world. We're a bankrupt third, fourth-rate military power, and we are irrelevant on the world stage.
It does feel to me that Trump and Starmer, it's completely one-sided.
Exactly.
I mean, the body language here, I know it's just one photograph, but you just feel that there's no symmetry in it.
Well, you know what Spitting Image would have done with Trump with a tiny Starmer puppet on his knee?
Yeah, he would have done that.
That would have summed it up perfectly.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. But just before we go into the technate, then Starmer says that he hasn't taken this into the war, but B-52 bombers, some of the most vicious bombers ever made. There's one there.
Flying out of our airfield.
A bombing Iran.
Killing children, as far as they're concerned.
Well,
that's what's going on.
They say not on purpose, but it has happened. So are we involved in the war or not?
We are involved in the war. Absolutely so, and obviously so. And that has made us and our troops abroad and so on legitimate targets because we've been sucked into somebody else's war. Yeah,
that's a pretty big claim, but also I didn't understand how you can do 15-hour bombing raids from the United Kingdom, clearly targeting things in Iran.
Yes, yeah.
And then you come back and say, well, we're not involved.
We're not in the war.
It's just weird.
It's it's the same trick stroke folly as they've done in Ukraine when they scream blue murder about, there's someone from the Russian embassy walking down the wrong street in London, they're spying. That's wrong, but it's okay for us to give our missiles and expertise to the Ukrainians to destroy Russian energy installations.
It does get tricky, I think. So let's talk about the technate. We haven't got a huge amount of that. What is a technate?
The technate was an idea which appeared to be lost in history. It came from a group called, people could look all this up, it's absolutely out there, very easy to find. There was an organization in the 1930s in America and Canada called Technology Inc. And it was a huge sort of semi-political organization with hundreds of thousands of members saying that democracy's run its course. We need to be run by a technocracy, and the technocracy should create a greater North America, which will be America, Canada, Greenland, Mexico, Guatemala.
Well,
here's the map. So
this
map was produced in 1940 as the map of the technate.
1940.
1940, the technate of North America. And it lay buried in history until Pete Hegseth, the self-styled Minister of War in the United States, showed it at a massive press conference and so on a couple of weeks ago, and he said this is the greater North America. It's literally
what?
That's what he said. This is the greater North America. This is why we're going to be fine in the world. And what he didn't tell people was this: the map he was showing was not produced by his department. It was taken from the technology movement of 1940. But the fascinating thing is this was produced by their Canadian branch, which was headed by a man called Haldeman, who, when he was accused, quite rightly, of being a Nazi sympathizer, and when the movement was banned in Canada just before the start of the Second World War, he emigrated to South Africa, where he became Elon Musk's maternal grandfather.
Wow.
Sorry, just got to stress, these people said that this enlarged North America has to be run by technocracy. In other words, it has to overthrow the republic and the democratic system of the United States, because those times are past. And to do that, basically, you have to take advantage of a crisis or create a crisis.
Greenland as well.
Including Greenland.
The 1,600 kilometers by 2,500 kilometers of ice.
This big chunk of ice.
And 53,000 people who said, do what you want.
And vast quantities of minerals and so on underneath it and around it.
With Greenland saying, do what you want, help yourself, but don't invade us.
Yeah.
How do you invade millions of square kilometers of ice? I mean, this is our land. Yeah, okay. And we can't hear you. So this technique, just looking at this, let's hold this up on the screen. What's the point? What's the point of this?
The point of this is it's a geopolitical thing, but the point of it also is about energy, and it's about the dollar. Because people are saying, oh, this war's all about the petrodollar, because the Saudis were beginning to sell their oil in things other than dollars. And it's the petrodollar recycling mechanism. Basically, the world buys its oil in dollars, and then the money, the actual wealth floods into the United States. That's the basis of American power and stability for the last 50 years. But this isn't so much about the petrodollar. The petrodollar was already dead because it was a 50-year agreement signed between Saudi Arabia and the United States, brokered by Henry Kissinger in 1974. For 50 years, 54, 50 years. And it expired 2 years ago. And since then, the Saudis have been moving very rapidly to selling oil in things other than dollars. So it's already done. And the petrodollar deal was that the Saudis would sell everything, price everything in dollars, and the United States would defend Saudi Arabia. The Saudis didn't renew the deal, so the petrodollar is over. But the petrodollar was the key prop of the dollar as the world's global reserve currency. That's the really important thing for the United States, because everyone in the world who wants to trade internationally has had to buy dollars, and the Federal Reserve, a private bank in the United States, has had the right to print the dollars that the world has then bought with real things to trade in the world. And that's the real basis of the power of the United States, and it was drastically threatened. Now, the point about the technate and its energy industry, and what's happening now is that by taking now the southern bit of that red map, Venezuela, Trump has taken a vast amount of oil, but it's actually a very heavy crude oil that's quite expensive to take out of the ground. The only way in which the Venezuelan oil and the frack gas from the United States and the Canadian tar sands, the only way in which the oil reserves of that landmass are really worth developing is if the world is really short of oil and gas and has to buy it from the United States. And the only way you can make that happen is to destroy the hydrocarbon capacity of the Middle East. And although people think this is a war primarily against Iran, it's a way in which Iran is being deliberately provoked with the hope that Iran will destroy the oil industry and the water purification, desalination plants of the rest of the Middle East. The aim of this is to destroy the hydrocarbons of the Middle East, so the world has to rely on the oil of the greater North America.
That's desperately complicated. In my experience of politics, is the more complicated the conspiracy theory, the less likely
it's not complicated in the slightest.
It's really it took you like 5 minutes to explain it.
Okay, then let me sum it up really
in 30 seconds.
Really quickly. America has just seized control of vast quantities of quite expensively produced hydrocarbons.
Yeah.
It has to get the world to buy them, or its financial system collapses. The only way to do that is to destroy the rivals. And that's what's going on.
Yeah, but then they'd be depending on others to destroy the desalination plants and everything else.
Well, it's far better than them doing it themselves.
Yes, but that makes you sound like that America and Iran are on the same side.
So look at, no, they're not on the same side. It's people using people. So Trump has said repeatedly that if this goes on a little bit further, he's going to be compelled, sorry about this, to destroy Iran's oil and their desalination plants. Now, that sounds logical because we think of Iran as a dusty, dry place. Iran doesn't need desalination plants. Only 2% of its water comes from desalination plants.
The rest come from the mountains.
The rest comes from the mountains, the lakes, the rivers of this enormous country. It's larger than Spain, Germany, and France combined. It's huge. It's got mountains. It's not short on water. But if Trump destroys, or if the Israelis destroy Iran's desalination plants, their hope is that the Iranians, quite logically, will retaliate by destroying these desalination plants of the Gulf states and Saudi Arabia. Now, the Gulf states and Saudi Arabia get 60, 70, 90% of their water from desalination plants. You take those out, you don't need to touch their oil industries. Their civilization collapses within 3 or 4 days. And with that close from that happening, and that's a crisis which will create an implosion of 1/3 of the world's hydrocarbons and leave the world having to buy those assets instead from the United States of America.
Some would say you're not getting enough sleep.
All I would say is, if you don't believe me, then you go along and think, yeah, we're going to get peace in the Middle East because this is so mad, because it's going to ruin our world. So obviously they want peace. No, they don't. The people, I'm not sure about Trump himself. I think he probably just wants his place in the history books, or perhaps he's being blackmailed. We don't know. But for whatever reason it is, it's not just Trump. If the American deep state, it exists. If this was just Trump on a wild foray of his own, threatening the whole world, they'd have got rid of him by now. And they haven't. It's not just because the Republicans need someone there as a fall guy. They could simply have him assassinated, a JFK job. And they haven't, because Trump is just a battering ram and he's a plausible excuse. He's going to do this damage. Then they can all say, well, when he's gone, we're very sorry. We didn't create this mess. Donald Trump created it. But you are going nowhere and you're going to be hungry. That's the new lockdown too.
What about a simpler argument? He just wants to open the Straits of Hormuz. Strait of Hormuz, there it is. What about that? Is that difficult to believe?
Well,
you just need to get the oil through there.
What's difficult to believe
based on the screen.
Yeah, what's difficult to believe is that the people really running the United States, for whom Trump is just a figurehead, allow this war to go ahead, thinking that it wouldn't close the Straits of Hormuz. Iran hasn't closed the Straits of Hormuz. Iran has been forced to close the Straits of Hormuz by the actions of Israel and the United States in a way that everybody knew was going to happen. And we're now very, very close to not just closing the Straits of Hormuz, but also closing the Arabian Sea and the world shipping lanes that go through the Suez Canal. The whole lot is going to be closed. That then means it's not 20% of the world's hydrocarbons. It's 30, 40% of everything we need to keep our civilization going. and they're wrecking it. It's just like people going right back. The last time we had a financial crisis, and so that ordinary Americans and ordinary Brits are really, really hungry and desperate, was in the Great Depression. The Great Depression was not an accident. It was sparked deliberately by the Rockefeller-Rothschild banking system as a way of hoovering up vast numbers of assets. That's what these people do.
I don't think I've ever had an episode with so many conspiracy theories. Did we go to the moon? Did we?
I don't know. I can't
Okay.
analyze whether
We did go to the moon.
I think we probably did. I can understand people being having a question mark.
The commentary will go mad now.
But it's beyond.
Many
us.
of them agreeing with you.
Yeah, sure. No, I'm not saying we did or we didn't. I don't know. I don't really care. I think we got Teflon out of it, didn't we?
Yeah, the non-stick frying pan.
That's
Yeah,
toxic on a mega scale.
not.
And that's another conspiracy theory. I mean, it's not. It's just a fact. It's hugely toxic, and it's a fact. The world is run by an elite of psychopaths and kleptomaniacs, and they create and exploit crises to add to their wealth and to add to their power and to screw over and control the rest of us.
Oh.
And what's happening now in Iran is not just a little local thing that's going to go away because they're going to create peace fairly soon. It's something which is going to utterly change all our worlds, and not in a good way.
That's just so depressing. You're laughing. You're going to say, I told you so. I told you so.
No,
You're right.
I'm laughing. I don't find it depressing at all, because we've lived through an era where nothing has happened really for decades in terms of really changing things. And in this materialistically very, very rich society, our culture, our civilization, our decency is just atrophied and been destroyed. And the crisis is coming. Is going to be so drastic. It's going to make people think. It's going to force people back to Christ and decency, and it's going to force people to think. Well, in the past, people would think it doesn't really matter who we elect, because my world's quite comfortable.
Yeah.
When your world is no longer comfortable, people don't have the luxury of leaving crooked politicians in power. People are going to be forced to push for some real radical change, and the real radical change is everything we talked about is being done to us by the 1%, because we, the 99%, let them.
Okay.
And the crisis that's coming is going to be so great that there's at least a slim chance and repression that the 99% will now be forced to say, look, this has to stop, and to insist that it stops.
Well, at least we've got great leadership now in Britain. We can't complain. There he is.
It's tremendous,
There he is.
isn't it?
What could possibly go wrong when we've got Keir Starmer in charge, an atheist, a proud atheist, actually. When he was praying at the cenotaph, who too?
Yeah.
Rhetorical, really. Well, thank you very much indeed for bringing this cheery message to us. This will be the most depressing I told you so in the history of unprecedented TV, if you're right. Do please like and subscribe. You can agree or disagree with Nick Griffin, but we're all about free speech here, and seriously, please do like and subscribe. You'll find hundreds of shows available for free. It takes 30 seconds to subscribe, and we give people the chance to express their views. I don't agree with everything that Nick Griffin said, but boy, I hope he's wrong. If he's right, then time to start digging the bunkers. Thanks very much to Nick. Thanks very much for you watching, to the team as well. I'm Lembit Öpik. That was Lembit Öpik Live.
Immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The return of the sausages.